I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The land acknowledgement. The Pima County Public Library acknowledges the sovereignty of Native nations and acknowledges the 22 federally recognized indigenous tribes of the state of Arizona and those who inhabit Pima County. We honor the vast and often unrecognized contributions and sacrifices of indigenous people and are conscious of the ongoing experience of inequality and political invisibility. In partnership with Native Nations, PCPL advocates for full access to its educational, informational, and recreational resources. Now we have a call to the audience. Does anybody have comments or share?
I just wanted to thank the staff for the increase in story time here at the downtown library, and I know a couple of libraries have added more programming, and it's all the toddler programs are always full. So thank you very much for that. It's very popular.
Is there anybody online who wishes to speak? I'm going to recognize District 3. Thank you for being here.
Yes, you bet. And Sharon, we just wanted to have the opportunity to formally thank you for your service. That's nice. So Steve and I would like to give you this certificate. And this is an appreciation of your thoughtful contributions and wisdom advising the library director and making decisions on policies and procedures that directly affect library users. Thank you for your commitment and for your meaningful impact on our community. We sincerely thank you for your time, insight, and unwavering support.
Well, thank you very much, Jess. Keep coming.
Thank you, thank you.
Any other speakers? All right, I will accept a motion for approval of minutes for September 4th.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, those are approved.
I'm abstaining.
Okay,
Mariana, sorry.
thank you. But I could barely hear you. All right, introductions. Well, we do have a lot of people here today. Maybe we could just go quickly around the room. We'll start with 5.
Just for interest.
Yeah.
I'm Blood. I'm executive director for the Pima Library Foundation.
I'm Karen Williams, and I'm president of the Pima Library Foundation.
Sharon Holtz.
Laura Lopez.
Anthony Batchelder, Deputy Director of Finance and Facilities and HR.
Marisa Porta, Deputy Director of Community Engagement.
Ana Sanchez, representative from Ward District 5.
Rewards district.
Like selections.
Steve Holmes, Deputy County Administrator.
Marianne O'Neill, District 2 representative.
John Alloway, District 1.
As Mayor, County Librarian.
I'm Denise Lane, Deputy Director of Public Services.
Audrey Saavedra, Ellison. Heather Roth, Ellison. Kate Meester, Ellison.
Ani Bezada with District 3 office.
Renee Goody, LSM.
Whitney Furman, Ellison. Tony Range, Ellison. Holly Schaefer, Community Relations Manager.
And I'm Julie Aldrich, and I am with Supervisor Kano, District 5.
Okay. And do we have any supervisor staff on the call?
Nope.
Mariana.
Supervisors.
Hey, I'm Mariana Padilla, also representative for District 2.
And I'm Vicky Lázaro. I'm with Pima County Public Libraries in LSM.
And I'm Kate Hiller from Supervisor Scott's office.
And I see Penny on the line.
Penny Moreno, President of the Board of the Friends of the Pima County Library.
And I'm Beth Mathias Lockery. I'm an LSM as well.
Any other staff or? Anybody?
I'll be presenting, I'll be presenting from the Pima County.
All right, very good. Thank you all. We have summary of current events by library board members. Does anybody want to report on activities?
I attended Quincy Douglas's 20th anniversary celebration. It was a very nice event, lots of folks there and some really good speakers, very well prepared.
The daughter was there.
Yeah.
That's great. I will say I was at Martha Cooper yesterday, right before a toddler story time. It was like a little rock concert. It was very, very busy. All like there was nowhere to park. Very successful. Anybody else have comments? Mariana?
No, thank you.
All right. Let's hear from the Friends, Penny.
Hi, we were happy at our September board meeting to welcome Tess to her first meeting and look forward to be giving her a tour of our facilities soon. And I've been told that our first payment of $60,000 is either on the way or already arrived. I'm not sure which one it is, but we're happy to start our first installment. And those are who are members of the Friends, we're having our sale on at Country Club on October 4th and 5th. That's this weekend. And our community sale will be next weekend, 10, 11, 12, and 13, with all the discounts on particular days. And we're looking forward to have Tess come and visit us. That's it.
Thank you. And the foundation, you
Sure. 3 quick things. We are looking forward to a donor event that we have scheduled for the end of October with Tess. It's a meet and greet. And it's not a fundraising event. It's just an opportunity for some of our donors to come and get to know her and informally have a conversation, do that kind of thing. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. We, I think, reported on this very briefly, but the Friends and the foundation are working together, and we have hired a consultant, Janet Hansel, who's with Grant Street Consulting. And what we want to do is get to know each other better, the two groups, and then explore how we can better work together or on behalf of the public library, so that we're doing the best we can and the most we can together. And then the last thing is just that we do need to know relatively soon what it is we can put out to our donors and request funding for this coming year. So, and I know Anthony knows that. Yes. That's
great. Well, those are 3 very important benefits. Very welcome. Thank you. Let's go to new business. And is that Kyle on the line? From County Attorney's Office?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, I think we're ready for you.
Fantastic. Laura, did you have the slides, or are they somewhere that I cannot see them?
Yes, hold on.
Fantastic. Would it be easier if I could just share my screen with PowerPoint?
I think so.
See if I can do that.
Yes.
Give me 1 second, please. It's been a while since I've used PowerPoint. Oh, why is it doing? this one. I'm sorry, just give me one moment, please.
Every time I do, right, lowest when you turn it off, like, you think technology would be your friend in this.
Teams go. Hmm. Okay, let me just share my screen now, and we should be good to go. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Good to go.
Fantastic. Okay, so just briefly as an introduction, my name is Kyle Johnson. I've been with the Pima County Attorney's Office since 2022. And that entire time I have worked with the Pima County Public Library. My unit over at the Pima County Attorney's Office is called Business Transactions Unit. And primarily what I do is I give the library legal advice as well as reviewing contracts and things of that nature. And so that's the bulk of what I have been doing. And that, of course, includes providing advice on how the library can make sure that it's complying with open meeting law. And what open meeting law is, hopefully you guys are for the most part familiar with it, is also known as sunshine laws. And the purpose of open meeting law is to basically make it so that governmental functions are transparent and open to members of the public. That's why we have a call to the public. That's why we have agenda notice. All that stuff is to make sure that interested denizens of Pima County can know what is going on with their tax dollars, basically, and with, their public libraries. This applies to commissions, it applies to boards, it applies to basically everyone. And it's anti-corruption, essentially. And so you guys work for the library. I'm sure you are all very strong proponents of, transparency and information. So hopefully you guys know quite a bit of this as members of the board and their staffs. So the basics are enshrined in the Arizona Revised Statutes in Title 38, and says that all meetings of these bodies shall be open to the public. Moreover, any decisions of those bodies need to be made in a valid meeting. Any member of the public can come to one of these meetings and attend, and all legal action, which is any action that the board makes that is binding, must occur at a public meeting. Also importantly, what is being discussed at those meetings must be given notice prior to the meeting. And that's why we have our agendas that are published on your website. What the notice actually has to include is sort of a case-by-case basis, but it should be sufficient for a member of the public to be on notice or informed about what is actually going to occur at the meeting. That's why if you have seen some of our Board of Supervisors meetings, you will notice that if there's a call to the public, a member of the public brings up something that is not on the agenda, it can be added to the agenda at the next meeting. Criticism can be commented on by members of the board, but they are not able to make a decision on that topic at that meeting because members of the public have to be able or afforded the opportunity to show up, give their opinion, see what is going on. This is also a very important tenet of open meeting law. Any person or entity that is charged with interpreting open meeting law must interpret it in favor of open meetings. That means that, if you guys are deliberating over whether something has to be done at an open meeting, you have to interpret it in favor of doing it at an open meeting if it's a closed question. That applies to me, that applies to you guys, applies to courts, all of us. And so who does this apply to? Every public body, whether it is created by a commission, created by the state, created by a board of supervisors, any government body, department, agency, anything has to comply with this title of the Arizona Revised Statutes. And so that includes the library advisory committee, subcommittees, standing committees, everything. And like I said just a couple of months ago, if there's a question of whether something needs to be in an open meeting, you have to lean towards it being in an open meeting. I won't get too deep in the weeds on the establishment of committees and subcommittees. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. So what is a meeting? This can get kind of fuzzy. So obviously you guys are in a meeting right now. We're all in a meeting right now because there is a quorum. I believe there are currently 5 seated members of your 10-person body. So if there are 5 of you, any meeting with 3 of you is a quorum. If it's in the hallway, that's a quorum. If it's via email with 3 of you copied on it, that's a quorum. If you are on a phone call, I don't really do this anymore, but a 3-way phone call, that's a quorum. And in addition to that, where an official action is proposed, discussed, deliberated, or taken, that would be a quorum. And so you guys, we have had this question come up, well, what happens if you have vacancies? And I believe you guys have 2 members per district, but only 5 members presently seated. Typically speaking, it's going to be the number of seated members. The majority of those is enough to establish a quorum. That's why even though you guys only have, 5 members of your 10 seats, 3 of you are enough to make decisions. If that weren't the case, you guys would be hamstrung until the time that you were able to fill at least 6 seats. And you guys know what a legal action is for the most part, I assume. If it is within the scope of your duties and it is an official act, it's likely going to be considered a legal action if you guys are voting on it. Technically, it can be considered a legal action even if you guys don't vote on it. You just decide without a vote. That would not be proper, of course, but it would count. Like I was mentioning before, if there is a email thread that 3 of you are on and you come to a decision or you have a discussion on an official act or a legal act by the public body, then that counts as a meeting by the quorum or by the public body. And yes, it can also include a one-way electronic communication. So just one email sent to the remaining members of the board can propose a legal action would count as a meeting, and you would be in violation of open meeting law if you did that via email without proper notice and agendized items, all that fun stuff. You can talk to the media. So if one of you has an interview with KTOA and the other members see that, that's not technically a meeting, even if you expressed your opinion on what you should do and other members agree with you. If they're not also there in that interview, you should be fine. You just can't be talking directly to another member or their staff. So like I was saying, the requirements of open meetings are notice, agenda, public attendance, and meeting minutes. So notice is before the meeting, meeting minutes are after the meeting, but both of those basically record to different levels of specificity what's going to happen at the meeting and what did happen at the meeting. The agenda is basically how you give notice to the public on what's going to be at the meeting. So it's very important when you are creating your agenda to actually cover everything that's going to be in there. And then with your meeting minutes, you want to cover everything that happened with some pretty stringent specificity. So the individual who spoke at the call to the public a few minutes ago, their name needs to be recorded in those meeting minutes. You'll notice if you listen to the Board of Supervisors meeting, they always announce who is talking, even if it's just a member of the public. Requirements for the notice, for the most part, these just go out on your website. I did look over your website prior to this meeting. You guys are doing fine. I didn't see any issues there, but it just needs to be placed such where it's not buried, where people can actually find it. Ages ago before the internet, this was all public notices and stuff like posted on doorways and whatnot at the actual location of the meeting. Some of you might still do that. I don't know if that's the case, but the internet website should be fine. It has to happen at least a day before the meeting itself and has to be accessible to the general public, except a few exceptions where there's a recession and a resumption within a day, so you guys could have a break and come back without having to do another notice. Or there's an actual emergency or a ratification of a past action, and we will get to ratification later on. Has to include the name, the date, the time of the meeting, the physical location of the meeting, and the agenda. And this is mostly stuff we had issues with back during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, where we were not meeting publicly. Again, if you have any questions with respect to purely remote meetings, let me know at the end of the presentation. I'll be happy to answer those. As I was saying, the agenda must be specific to what's going to happen at the meeting. If it's not in the agenda, then you have not given proper notice, and the action taken as a result is not valid. It will be voided unless it is later ratified. You don't have to get completely into the nitty-gritty of every single thing, but it has to be sufficient for people to be on notice of what's going to be discussed. Obviously, that is kind of a case-by-case basis, but again, has to be construed in favor of being an open meeting, being specific enough for members of the public to know what's going to happen. When in doubt, provide more detail. And the body may only discuss, consider, or make decisions based on things that are listed in the agenda. This goes back to what I was saying with respect to the call to the public, where a member of the public brings up a item of discussion that's more than likely not going to be in the agenda because you didn't know that member of the public was going to discuss that. Unless it was already on the agenda in some way, you cannot discuss that. Other matters related thereto, there is some wiggle room with, if it's on the agenda, you can discuss matters that are sort of logically related to what is on the agenda. Some of the common pitfalls with agendas are being overly, you've heard the term over-engineered. We have a term called over-attorneyed when it comes to things like contracts and other documents. We have a movement in the legal field to write things in plain English as much as possible. You may laugh at me if you've seen any of the contracts that I reviewed for saying that, but that is what we're trying to do. And try to keep that in mind when you are crafting your agendas. Again, I looked at your agenda, you guys are doing great. But you do want to avoid very sort of vague categories that can be overly broad and not put people on sufficient notice of what's going on. You guys just had your current events. I'm sure you're very familiar with this. You can talk about current events, but you cannot use it as a way to end run around the notice and agenda requirements. Public attendance. Yeah, basically the public can come, listen, attend, they can tape record, they can videotape. Calls to the public is optional, but if you do have a call to the public, there are very specific rules with respect to that, unless you want to get a nasty First Amendment lawsuit. And I'm sure you guys are all familiar with our lovely First Amendment auditors, and you do not want that. The members of the public can be required to register, but you cannot require a sign-in and attendance sheet. You can't have the meeting, up in the mountains somewhere. You can't have it in a supply closet. It has to be somewhere that people can actually get to. And attend. You have to have enough room. So if you guys, for whatever reason, and please do not let this happen, suddenly had to have 100 members of the public at this meeting right now, that room was not big enough. You have to move that meeting somewhere else. And honestly, if you have 100 people wanting to come to your meetings, something very bad has happened. So please, I don't want to see 100 people there. Yeah. They also have to be at reasonable times. I know some public bodies have their meetings at night. So, I mean, this is fine. It's at the end of the day. Obviously, it's not ideal for everyone. There's not going to be an ideal time for everyone, but as long as it's reasonable, you can get away with it. Like I said, the call to the public is optional, not mandatory. But if you do have it, there are these specific rules that prevent you from putting any kind of restriction on there that is not a time, place, or manner restriction. And you may be familiar with the term time, place, or manner restriction because it is a legal term of art with respect to First Amendment freedom of speech jurisprudence. And so you can limit the time that the speaker is allowed to speak. You can, if you've seen our Board of Supervisors meetings, it's 2 minutes if there are more than 20 speakers, 3 minutes otherwise. That is a time restriction. A place restriction, obviously, you can only have them speak during the meeting. And it's not really a big, place isn't going to be a big deal here unless you were trying to say, hey, you can't come in and speak. If it's a public building, you should be more or less fine. And manner. Manner is a bit more difficult to describe. It's basically saying that the manner of speech has to be, well, not disruptive. You can ban repetition of more than one speaker per group, but you cannot, very, very importantly, cannot control what they say. That gets into viewpoint discrimination and it gets really messy and very ugly very quickly. And so, like I was saying before, if the issue is not on the agenda, but a member of the public brings it up, you cannot discuss it. You cannot enter into a dialogue with the speaker. What you can do is if that speaker was coming in and just laying into you, you can address their criticism. You can instruct your staff to study the matter. You can instruct, you can place the matter on a future agenda, and you can respond to personal criticism, which I'm sure you've seen at our Board of Supervisors meetings. So it's come to my attention, or I was apprised of the fact that a former member of the board had been coming in and speaking to the board outside the call to the public. And so is that allowed? Technically, yes, if you open that opportunity to the entire public, or if that person is asked to come and speak and that person is on the agenda. So the concern with allowing a specific person to come and speak is that if you don't allow everyone else in the public to come and speak at that same time, then you are viewpoint discriminating because you're only allowing that one person and their specific viewpoint to comment on an item that's on the agenda. Moreover, if that person brings up something that is not on the agenda, and this is not during the call to the public, you are still faced with the issue that that person has talked about something that is on the agenda, very closely related to something that's not on the agenda. And if you make a legal determination or a legal decision or discuss that thing that's not on the agenda, you put into risk that sort of clouding the item that was on the agenda. And so you want to be careful about that. If you're going to have a specific individual come in and speak outside of the call to the public, make sure it's on the agenda, make sure what they're speaking about is on the agenda, like I was on the agenda, right? So that is that. If there's any questions about that, I'll be happy to answer those in a moment. You guys did a fantastic job of following this in the beginning of the meeting. I don't know if we have any members of the public on Teams, but if they were, these are the rules that you follow. Basically, you want to make sure that they're not disruptive of the meeting, that they're identified, and that copies of any documents are online or accessible. If you've used Granicus with Board of Supervisors, you have been able to see the agenda right next to the recording, so it's very useful for that. And of course, you need to record the meeting as well. Excuse me. Executive sessions are pretty straightforward. These are where you can discuss things and make determinations that are not in an open meeting. And so this has to do with employment matters, with confidential records, with legal advice, not this legal advice, but legal advice, more specifically. So when I'm talking to Tess about something, she's asking me a question, that's legal advice. You guys are technically not my you're not represented by me. I'm not sure if you guys have an independent attorney as the board, but I'm only speaking to you now because I was asked to by the Pima County Public Library Director. Things involving litigation, salary discussions, for the most part, it's going to be employment-related stuff and legal-related stuff, and then negotiations with tribes or purchases of property. Executive sessions have limitations on who can attend. Auditors, persons subject to a personnel decision, so an employee that's being discussed at the executive session, members of the public body, your attorney, and people who are reasonably necessary. We love the word reasonably, and no one really knows what it means. But you can sort of use your intuition to understand if someone's necessary to one of the topics that I was just talking about before. Minutes are required, but they are kept confidential. Speaking of minutes, they must be kept and made available to the public. You guys have published all your meetings on your website. Your clerk is doing a fantastic job. Keep it up. If you have any questions, we'll answer those at the end. The minutes have to be specific to and identify who is present, who speaks, what's discussed, what the actual determinations are, and the names of the members making and seconding each motion, and how each member voted. Additionally, you need the names of each member of the public who's addressing the public body, the identity of anyone that's on the phone or on Teams, and we'll get into ratification in a second, but if there is a ratification, a copy of the disclosure statement. And if there's an emergency, a description of the emergency. So I spoke a little bit on some of these pitfalls earlier, serial meetings, plenary meetings, spoken wheel meetings, and I'll get into the details on those now. Serial communication is where you say one of you emails another one of you, not sufficient to make a quorum, but you're discussing something that is an action for the board to take. That person then goes and takes that to another member and says, here's what member A told me, here's what we're thinking. So if the total number of members exceeds the amount of a quorum, then there hasn't been a meeting, and if you do that without proper notice and agenda, you violate open meeting law. Splintering or polling is basically when you go to when one of you goes to each member of the board, and this applies to your staff as well. And you have separate discussions with each of them. Well, not each of you, but enough to be a quorum. That can be iffy. So say member A goes to member B and says, here's what I'm thinking for this particular item. What are your thoughts? Then member A goes to member C, here's what me and B are thinking. That would be an issue. That would violate open meeting law. And so we have a term of art called the appearance of impropriety. Basically, if it smells funny, even if there was no inappropriate act, just avoid it, just to be safe. This is what I was saying before, you cannot do it through your staff either. You cannot have your staff go around and do any of the stuff that you are not able to do via open meeting laws. And of course, there are punishment sanctions for staff or other person who knowingly helps you avoid compliance. So this does not just risk you if your staff does this, or you instruct your staff to do this. The staff will be penalized as well if that is discovered. So yeah, better safe than sorry. Avoid any appearance of impropriety. If 3 of you are at a party, I don't know, you librarians have really wild parties. Hey, I've worked with you guys for a few years now. I know what you guys get up to on the weekends. Just do not discuss anything official. Just keep it easy breezy, right? Yeah, so this is an older Arizona Attorney General opinion. Basically, you want to not use email or other electronic communications. I don't know if any of you guys still have pagers, Don't use your pager. Don't use your email. Do not hop on. Do not get on the Skype. Do not get on WhatsApp. I don't care what it is. Do not do it and start talking about legal actions. None of that stuff. Right. So just don't do it. If it's official, make it very official. We do not like emails in the legal profession. I don't know if you guys have seen The Wire, but there's a famous quote from The Wire where one character says, "Are you taking notes on a criminal bleep conspiracy?" That's what an email is. If you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, you should not be writing it down. Right. I'm not saying you should be doing things that you're not supposed to be doing. I'm saying the opposite. But if you are doing something, an email is like the worst way you could possibly do it. Because every single email that you send on Pima County servers is recorded. I'm sure you guys are familiar with public records requests. I work with our public records unit. We get dozens and dozens of requests for emails. My emails, Laura Conover's emails, everyone's emails are available to be read unless they are protected by a privilege. And for the most part, they are not. And so I know you guys are on some really crazy long email chains. All of that can go to, any regular Joe who requests it, and any journalist or reporter. I'm sure some of you have seen or heard of Project Blue. We have received, I want to say, a couple dozen records requests for every record related to Project Blue. So thousands and thousands of emails. So if you guys are sending email to one another discussing things that that should be discussed only in an open meeting, stop doing that right away. And don't do it anymore in the future. Yeah, reply all is problematic, which we all know. And it's more problematic than you'd even think just from being stuck on chains you don't want to be on. It's an issue because if you reply all and you don't see another member of the board on there, and you just made a quorum on accident, that's not good. And it might not have been intentional, but going back to appearance of impropriety, just don't do it. You do not want to be up in front of a judge saying, "I'm sorry, Your Honor, I did not check the CCs." Yeah, just don't do it. And check your CCs. We do have a little reminder here that we can pop down at the bottom of your emails and your staff emails. No one actually reads those anymore, so I'm not sure how useful that is, but it's down there. Social gatherings, like I said, your parties, be careful. Yeah, you see one another hanging out on the weekend, on a back patio, you're at the pool, you're at a cookout, and you see two of your buddies on the board, zip it. Just don't talk to them. I mean, you can talk to them, obviously, but just not about anything with respect to a library action, okay? Me personally, I might just leave because I have a motor mouth. I cannot shut up my yapper. So, I don't even want to put myself in a position of risking that. Talk about ratification. So this is what you do if you accidentally have an oopsie and you violate open meeting law and you make a legal action that was not properly noticed or on the agenda. If it happens, you have about 3 days to ratify that. I'm sorry. You have about 3 days for another meeting, or you can do it at the next meeting. So ratify within 30 days of discovery or when the violation should have been discovered. Ratification, however, does not protect you from consequences. If you violate open meeting law, you can still be sanctioned. If you have a meeting to ratify something, you have to give 72 hours of notice. That's more than the 24 hours that you have for a regular meeting. You have to describe in that notice the intent to ratify the prior action, the description of the action itself to be ratified, and where the public can obtain that detailed written description. And basically everything that happened related to it being approved inappropriately. And so let's say you guys come to a decision via email, even though I just told you not to. If that happens and you decide that you want to go forward to it, you can ratify that But you have to put all of your dirty laundry out there for any member of the public to be like, ooh, like, don't do that. Yeah, you don't want to be in trouble in front of the teacher. You don't want Tess to be emailing me saying, hey, this happened. Actually, it'd probably be Laura and Tess saying, hey, this happened. What do we do? I don't want to get that email. You don't want them to have to send that email. Just be careful. Penalties for open meeting law violations, unless you ratify that option, it is null and void. It's like it never happened. And then you have members of the public saying, hey, these guys do not comply with the law. They're bad actors. They are suspicious. They are corrupt. We're going to come into their meetings. We're going to have signs. There's going to be applause. It's going to be nasty. You don't want that. Yeah, they will come into your meetings and they will call you all kinds of nasty names. And I don't want that for you guys. You guys don't want you for that, for you guys and your staff. So just be careful. Yeah. And so if you do happen to accidentally violate open meeting law, ratify it. And if you cannot ratify it, you get a do-over, I guess, but you can still be in trouble. There are civil penalties for violating open meeting law. There's no monetary penalty for the first offense. You get a oopsie. But after that, the numbers start piling up. You can be charged civil penalties, and remember, this can apply to your staff as well. Attorney's fees, let's say John Q. Public notices that you guys take an official action over the phone or via email. He was at that party too. He heard you guys, gossiping, and he heard you guys came to a decision. He goes to a court and says, hey, those guys violate open meeting law. And he hires an attorney. And if the court agrees that you guys violate open meeting law, you guys get to pay his attorney fees. And of course, you can also be removed from office, but at that point, you're probably just like, screw this, I don't want to do it anymore anyway. But yeah, that can be a consequence as well. And then the board cannot cover your fine, cannot hire counsel to defend against open meeting law challenges. So if one of you or your staff is in violation of open meeting law, they got to get their own attorney. It will pile up expenses very quickly. Like I said, just better to avoid it. Transparency is good. We love transparency. We're here at the library because we love the free exchange of information, ideas, all that fun stuff. This is why the library is actually my favorite department. Do not tell anyone else I said that. Yeah, we're here to make sure that everything is on the up and up above board, and people can come in and read their books. There's resources on the Clerk of the Board website. I'm actually not sure if these links still work because this is an older slide. But if they do not work, I'll check that later and I'll send the proper links over to Laura. And that's it. Are there any questions? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? I'm so glad one of you got that reference because I was going to be very sad. I love that movie. All right.
Hey, Kyle, sorry, Kyle, I have a question. Thanks for this presentation. I understand with the limiting speakers at the call to the public to a certain amount of time, is it possible also to limit the amount of time that we do to the call to the public?
Yes.
Or did that just go on until the public is done speaking?
No, you can limit the time that it goes on. That's a time, place, and manner restriction. So a limit on the time. I'm not sure if the Pima County Board of Supervisors has a limit on that, but I think typically, actually, you know what? I need to look into that. I'm actually not sure on second thought. Because you have to afford an opportunity for members of the public to speak on things that are on the agenda. And so if there is not enough time for everyone that wants to talk on that agenda, and they're all from different. I will look that up and I will get back to you. I apologize. I don't know that off the top of my head. I feel like I should, but I don't.
Kyle, could you also tell us if that needs to be in the agenda, the time limit?
If there is a time limit, then yes, you want to put that in the agenda.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? I'm not on the library board, but on the board of the Friends of the Library. Are you saying that we can't bring up new business because it's not been on the agenda and discuss it and pass it?
At the Friends of the Library Board?
Right.
I don't think Friends of the Library is a public entity, is it?
It's just a not-for-profit.
None of this applies to you because you're not part of the government.
Okay, thank you.
So do your thing.
Anybody else have a question for Kyle? Mariana, did that help? Okay,
Not yet, but I believe in
Right.
Kyle
Well-
finding the answer.
we'll hear back.
Yeah, so Mariana, I will pass that answer to Tess if she approves, which I can imagine she would have. And then Tess can make sure it gets to you, but I'll look that up. Post haste, I'm not in tomorrow, but I'll have that answer for you probably Monday.
Thank you very much, Kyle.
It was my pleasure. I hope you guys all have a fantastic weekend and enjoy this slowly cooling weather. I'm actually, yeah, I love the library. I'm really happy with everything that you guys do. Please keep up the great work. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Okay, that was very helpful. So now we want to talk about the establishment of a policy for the reserve funds and administration.
So I think prior to last month's meeting, everyone had an opportunity to see a draft reserve policy for the library. As an independent taxing district, it's appropriate for the library to have its own reserve policy. I know that some feedback had gone into the creation of that draft, but the library advisory board did not have an opportunity really to discuss the draft, to provide feedback to the draft. So we wanted to take an opportunity to provide you with basically a few different versions of a draft. So if you are able to refer to the board packet, we provided you with the first document is basically the draft that you already saw in the past communication. And then if you look at the second version, you can see some edits that library staff specifically provided in red. So you can see what we proposed to change. The draft reserve policy was also viewed by some staff in county administration. They provided some additional feedback, which was the third version, and you can see the language that was suggested to be incorporated. And that was the updated document that Laura had provided or had submitted to you. So we just wanted to make sure that it was very clear, first of all, what we had proposed to incorporate the library staff, and then secondly, what county administration staff had wanted to incorporate as well. What we really focused on was making sure that it was very explicit in the policy that use of reserves would be for exclusive use by the library district. And specifically under certain circumstances, because I think a lot of people view the reserve as some sort of elastic fund that's just sort of sitting there, but we wanted to really restrict the use and be very specific about the circumstances under which it would be accessed. And again, just making sure it's very clear that the purpose of the reserve is to provide fiscal stability and to not serve as a funding source for new initiatives, for expansion, et cetera. We also wanted to make sure it was very clear that we believe this needs to be for 3 months. The additional language that was proposed by some of the staff in county administration really related to making sure that the early education program was also referenced, because from a legal standpoint, the tax fund that supports the library also supports this program. And from a legal standpoint, it would then follow that funding that were meant to continue operations for one would potentially be used to continue operations for another under emergency circumstances. So that was that language in the third document that was highlighted in yellow. And I will turn it over to you for questions because I think that you might have some additional questions.
So that addition, that last addition in yellow, that, I don't know, I guess it's not clear to me, you know, adding the PEEP program. How do we oversee that budget? Do we, you know, because you talk about, you know, having, you know, reserves for 3 months and, you know, ensuring that, but if we are not, or if the library's not responsible for the budget of PEEPs and the day-to-day, you know, my concern is that there could be overages in that budget that, you know, you might not be aware of, and then what would that mean, you know, in terms of the reserve, and then having to develop a plan as to how that's going to be, you know, refunded, and that would basically fall on the library rather than, you know, on the other program, as I see it. You know, I might be wrong, but
I think the language accounts for the fact that the same tax fund funds that program, but I don't think that this language, especially because it's in the background section, it's not actually in the use of the reserves section of the document of the policy. My understanding is that any authorization to use this would still have to go to the Board of Supervisors. And that ultimately we wouldn't be able to make an independent decision to authorize use of the reserves. That would be going to the board. If there was a question about sort of percentage wise or how much money was going to one program to sustain operations in addition to the other, that would be going to the board. So I don't think there would be any action taken around that wouldn't be discussed and transparent. I think also our hope is that there would never be need for this. It's, you know, I hate to knock on wood, but I think, again, this is for pretty extreme circumstances. For example, like a very significant budget shortfall that was, you know, unanticipated, not a minor shortfall like we're currently sometimes having to manage, but we're talking about like more of a really significant shift. I think also looking at emergency circumstances that are related to natural disasters, things like that. We've obviously experienced something like that 5 years ago. And I think that's part of why we're thinking about making sure that something like this is in place. I think if we were in a position of having to authorize or request authorization by or to the Board of Supervisors for use of reserves, inevitably the question of what percentage or whether funding would be going to support that program would also be arising at that time. I kind of see this as just an acknowledgement that they're part of the environment right now in terms of the tax fund.
Well, I see Jan's concern. It seems kind of like a loose end, but I guess what you're saying is whether it's the library or PEEPs that has an emergency, that we really have to get emergency to access those funds, not just overspending the budget, for example. So, for example, I guess you're not responsible for the PEEPs budget, right?
No, I have kind of a suggestion maybe just in thinking about what you're saying. And that is, You know, if you look at the use of the reserves, this section, the second bullet is just unanticipated budget shortfalls. Perhaps we could address this by being more specific in terms of talking about the scope of budget shortfall we're really talking about, so that the policy is not invoked for a sort of more common scenario that might emerge. That could potentially strengthen it and maybe address the concern that it would be potentially just referenced, you know, to address any budget shortfall.
That would certainly help. That's my concern is,
Yeah,
you know, what one sees as an emergency versus,
Yeah.
you know, somebody else. I mean,
It's kind of, you know, wide open there, unanticipated, well, everything's unanticipated, you know, like a lot of things fit there. I think it's a great idea to have this policy, but what is the library's motivation to go in and refill the funds real quick if they're just gonna get, you know, used to get in the next emergency? Like, what's in it for us? And I don't know, this must have gone by the, what do they call the liability people, loss management, yeah, whatever. But, okay, Peeps is like a voucher, right? We're not talking about Peeps facilities having emergency damage as well. Like, are we covering their physical plants?
we're
In an
talking about
emergency?
specifically the program.
Well, I think it needs to be really clear.
Okay,
I would feel better about that.
well, and there has to be county staff, right, to manage the program and, you know, follow steps.
I mean, our interpretation of an emergency may be very different. than
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
Mariana, did you have anything you want to add?
I'm curious about what the role of the advisory board is. Like, what is the contemplated role of the advisory board in the reserve policy? And is it, like, should there be, I know our job is to like advise and provide recommendations. And I'm not sure that in the process that's contemplated here, how the advisory board fits in.
thanks for your question. So basically, this policy has not gone before the Board of Supervisors. It's only appeared as a component of the memo that you saw that had been submitted last month by the county administrator. And so the purpose of this discussion is to seek your feedback, to identify places where the policy could be clarified, to address questions and concerns. Ultimately, the draft policy will have to go to the Board of Supervisors for approval. We would not be able to pass something like that without that process. And so, on some level, we're anticipating the concerns and the interests that are going to be raised through that process and, you know, trying to account for them up front. I think there have been a couple of really helpful points raised here about the potential to be more specific in terms of what we're talking about with respect to unanticipated budget shortfalls, as well as the questions about what is the scope of what would be supported. Like, are we talking about the program staff, the facility where the program operates, things like that. So I definitely think that we can consider those items, redraft something, present it to you again. I think I would rather go through that process than sort of rush for approval, knowing that those questions were outstanding about it.
Yeah, and again, because it is a voucher program, I mean, I think the PEACE program is a valuable and very needed program, but I can also see where, you know, issues affecting the community could cause a need for, you know, so many more
Yeah.
vouchers and, you know, does this policy give the organization, you know, the feeling that, okay, we can go ahead and issue more vouchers because it's, you know, it's a community need, it's a community emergency. And then after the fact, come and say, you know, we overextended our budget by, you know, X amount and we need, you know, to.
Right, or some other entity like the city drops the ball.
Yeah.
Or we backstopping other agencies' commitments.
Right.
So there could be language potentially that we added that sort of address something around supporting current scope of operations, not expanding it.
Yeah.
And then also at the level at which it had been funded at the time of the emergency or something, because that would prevent some sort of like extra.
Well, and I thought
Unapproved shift.
this whole policy, you know, it came about because of the concern, okay, we, you know, there will be $10 million to fund PEEPs, you know, for this year, and how do you protect, you know, the library district from incurring, you know, additional and maybe unforeseen costs related to the, you know, this program, and considering, you know, issues that might arise, you know, for the district itself. So I don't know, I think we should just tighten up the language.
Yeah, this is very helpful. I really appreciate it because I think there are at least 3 different places where we could sort of address those things. Just going back to what you were saying, I think having the reserve policy in place is critically important because it helps provide a very clear definition for the rest of the county, and all of the stakeholders, like what we're actually talking about when we're talking about reserve. So that people understand what it's intended for, what it cannot be used toward, and that it's an extremely valid part of our budget forecasting because, you know, this is, we're talking about in the event of an emergency, we're talking about protecting our staff, we're talking about protecting our physical plant, and if we don't have something like this in place, it really leaves us vulnerable. So I think my suggestion is that we incorporate language that addresses this stuff more specifically and then bring it back to you.
Unless there were some sort of structural change that gave you more control over that budget, which I don't think will ever happen.
Or that you would want.
Yeah, until the state of Arizona funds, you know, childcare, like New Mexico does.
Not in the present moment,
Right.
at least.
But, and also, I would say that, reviewing it annually is maybe not enough. I think maybe every 6 months, if the LAB just gets a little update on where the funds are.
I'm sorry.
There's language that says
reserve policy or
under advisement of the LAB will annually monitor the financial condition. Annually is maybe, you know, a lot goes on in a year. I think maybe every 6 months might be better. It's like the last, it's under E, small letter E, ongoing monitoring and compliance.
I agree. I mean, I think that it should be part of a budget update where you're presented with sort of each component of the budget with the reserve or the status of the reserve being part of that. That makes sense to me. So you said quarterly, I'm sorry.
Oh, twice a year.
Twice a year. Okay.
Well, I certainly agree that it's great to have this policy and the goal of having,
Yeah.
3 months reserved. Because they say, you never know what kind of emergencies might come up or, you know, dramatic economic changes or lower taxes or whatever. I mean, it's good to have to protect the library. But I certainly agree with Anna that it keeps things should be tightened up a little bit. And this is kind of I should probably know the answer to this, but how is the PEEPS money managed? Who manages that?
Another good part of it, community workforce development manages PEEPs.
So the library transfers
Correct.
$10 million.
10 point, this year 10.6, next year 10.75. But it goes as a transfer out, correct? We don't manage it.
So if there wasn't and I don't pick up pieces, it's just theoretical. I think it's a great program.
Yep.
But theoretically, if PEEPs did overspend their budget, what would happen? How would that?
Technically, it wouldn't have to come from us. That would be a board decision on how they would fund the additional overage. In theory, it could come from the general fund contingency. There's other ways. It doesn't have to come from the library. The initial allotment of the 10 million, 10.6, 10.75 is just what comes from the library. I think that has been, board members, staff can confirm that that amount has been voted on, and that's a set amount from what the library, I think, district contributes. So any more than that would have to, I think, get approval from the board.
But having this policy and having, peaks explicitly identified in there, I think it makes it maybe more of a probability that the, overage might have to come from our reserve, the library reserves.
Unless we add something.
Yes.
Suggested that specifically addresses
Yeah.
that.
Any other suggestions?
Thank you.
Downtown library update.
Well, one thing that we want to communicate, which is very exciting, is that transfer of the keys has occurred. The keys to the car. So we're really excited about that. I had the opportunities to tour the facility, which is really, I think there's a lot of potential there. One of the questions that I'm hearing a lot, just from different people that I've been interacting with over the past several weeks, is just what's the timeline? And I think I just want to be clear that we really don't have a timeline yet. We know that this is not going to happen in under 2 years. But I think there's potential to begin to piece together a tentative timeline once we're able to complete the RFP process for the architect design firm. So that's a really important step in the process, obviously, because once that occurs, they can move forward with the design work. Eventually, a contractor would be identified, and then we would be able to move into the actual build remodel stage. And then, of course, as that's happening, there's a lot of logistical planning that's going to need to take place internally around really important things like how we move so many volumes of the collection, and beginning to do that space planning work so that that's complete by the time we're actually ready to do the move. Sometimes there's also concerns around temporary access to the collection that we might need to plan for. So there's a lot of work to do, but I think it's very, it's engaging work. We know that there will also be a public engagement process around what the public is looking for and what they hope to see in the new facility. I think it's really important too that our staff, particularly the staff that work at the main library or have worked at the main library, have a chance to provide feedback, because we know there are a lot of safety and security concerns that can be addressed through effective space planning and through really trying to anticipate issues in advance. So this is a really great opportunity to be able to do that. And we're very excited about that. I think we also have need to do some logistical planning around some basic things like working out for the short term, what's going to happen with parking, because there's a parking lot that's, associated with the property, making sure that security concerns are addressed, just because it's a vacant property. We don't want to see any vandalism or damage done to the property. So there's stuff for us to work out in the short term. We do have some we hope, 3 new library advisory board members joining us fairly soon. And I think maybe once they come on board, it would be nice to schedule a tour again for the whole library advisory board team, or maybe, we could offer a couple of different times for people, just so that I know that I think you were able to do that, or there was an invitation to do that, but I just want to make sure we invite the new advisory board members too, and they have a chance to do a tour. So that we can look at it together and talk about it. Were there any questions about where we are with this project?
So we have the keys. And there are a lot of things that have to be taken care of quickly, like the security, obviously, I guess that's a primary concern. But when do you see hiring an architect to work on this project?
My understanding is that around mid-month, there's going to be a pretty significant meeting that will take place in terms of evaluating the finalists that made it through the different stages. And then I think at that point, we would be moving to contracting. So hopefully, by the end of October, maybe the contracting would be done sort of early November.
So the county already put out a request for proposals from
Yeah,
architects.
those are being evaluated now. Yeah. So it's really exciting that aspect is moving along, and that's the part I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
Well, so hopefully we can find an architect who has experience with all the things you've discussed, remodeling libraries, providing security for staff.
Yeah.
So in about a month or so, we'll be hearing about an architect.
We hope so.
Great.
We know that sometimes it's a little bit longer than we hope, but that's my hope, yeah.
Oh, great, thanks.
Holly.
Holly had to step out. She had parent teacher conferences. She left me her notes. So she would review this later, make sure I did a good job. So Murphy Wilmot's life 60th anniversary is happening Saturday, October 18th. It's gonna be from 10 to 4. They're gonna have arts and crafts, a portable planetarium, a movie screening. I think it's Herbie, that little bug, the little Herbie the Love Bug. I think performance by Hard Scrabble Road Trio, and they'll have a bunch of trivia stuff as well. So everyone's invited to that. The Pride Author Talk is going to be with Tucson Poet Laureate T.C. Tolbert. That's at Murphy Wilmot Library. That has both an in-person component and an online component. It's Saturday, October 25th from 3 to 4:30. It's going to include a poetry reading, interactive activities, a Q&A, and a book signing. And if you're going to register online, if you want to attend online, you do have to register ahead of time. And you also have an ASL interpreter at that event. And then last is October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and Jessica P. from the library's collection development team wrote up a blog that included both nonfiction and fiction recommendations. And it's currently the first link on the left side of the library.
There's a really good Arizona Illustrated that profiles T.C. Tolbert. It's just fantastic.
And
Really amazing. Thank you. Marisa.
I don't have a ton to add to my report. I just wanted to kind of address we had an ongoing agenda item about our community survey, and so I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that. So that community survey that we sent out, we do have data for that. We're still going through that data, trying to figure out what it will come out of that. What we've really been talking about as Tess has come on is how to use that data set to inform our strategic planning that we plan to do very soon. It's going to be a long process. We haven't gone through that in a very long time as a system. So, that community survey data will be used as one set. It's kind of step one right now we're going through, hiring a consultant for Alice TA grant that we received. And so that person will really be looking at the previous data set and kind of seeing where we need to focus that second step. So, many of the people that responded to that first community survey were library users. And so we really want to focus on non-library users for this next, next step of this process, and also really looking at some of the community members that didn't participate. So being really strategic, doing community forums and focus groups, and trying to bring in that feedback that from community members that, just didn't participate in the previous one. Again, another set of data that we'll be using. And then, we're going to be looking at those two and kind of, again, probably more than likely working with the consultant to do a really formalized long-term strategic planning process that'll involve staff, the public, all of you, key stakeholders throughout the community to really get feedback about where our library systems are going to be going into the future. So I just wanted to give some context to kind of how we're going to be utilizing those data sets. As things come out, we're looking at, we can definitely share, some tidbits about, or just like the, I think we shared previously about, some of the data that came out, from the, not the online component, was that some of the community members wanted Saturday hours. So, as we're going through the process, we can share some of that information with you going forward. But yeah, that's kind of just what I wanted to share. Like that's our goal. Strategic planning is coming.
When was the last time the library went through a strategic planning process?
Where do you remember year-wise?
The last one was 21 or 23, something like that, or 20 to 20.
Might have been 20.
So it would be 2019.
2019, yeah, I think it more than likely was. So it's been a while.
It's 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, Ann.
Not too much else. I do want to say that we, with giving Marissa's team and community engagement some extra staff, we've been welcoming on new library services managers, and also informed by Beth Waller's study that she presented to y'all a couple months ago. We have created a library services manager position that focuses on safety and security, trauma-informed care, restorative practices, and social services programs and vulnerable populations, et cetera. And Lindy Berman has moved into that position. So we're very, very excited. Lindy's been doing a lot of that work, as we talked about a little bit a couple months ago. And so we're really, really excited about that, and welcoming Adriana Saavedra to our team. Audrey's joining us from Central Arizona College, where she was the director of libraries and learning centers there for the last 13 years. So we're very, very excited for her to come on. She's been a great fit, and wonderful new member to our team. So we've been working a lot on doing all that onboarding, that kind of thing this month. So we're very excited.
Thank you. Anthony.
Yeah, so got two quick updates. We actually just got all the quotes back for Wheeler Taft Abbott. So that remodel renovation is gonna be happening hopefully here fairly soon. Hopefully closing at the end of November. It took a little bit longer to get some of this information, and get the quotes back from the vendors. And it should be closed for about 2 to 3 months. There's going to be some spaces reimagined, some new flooring, carpet put in, some more stuff added to the children's areas. Yeah, so it's going to look great. I'm working with Powell and Charlotte Mine Facilities and their team to go over everything with project design and construction. So yeah, that's update number 1. Update number 2, as you can see on our hiring section for human resources, we hired a bunch of pages and a lot of other people, and I mean a bunch of pages. So that was great. In addition to that, we added all those people to the 345 positions we have, so we filled a lot of these vacancies. We currently have 34 positions vacant, which is about a 10% vacancy rate, which is under the average of the county, which is 11. We continue to hire. There are a lot of you can see there's, in the vacancy summary, there are positions that are under recruitment. Some of them have actually been filled and some of them are in the process of beginning to recruit, some starting Friday and then another one starting next Friday. So we're actively pursuing our strategic plan and placement of staffing and continuing to push forward with that.
And have you been at 10% in the last couple of years, or like a new low?
No, it's definitely been higher than that. I was looking at vacancy rates going all the way back to 1920. Like school year 1920. Sorry, Mariana. Yeah. So yeah. I gotta always preface that. Yeah. So like right before COVID and then on, the vacancy rate was always really, really high. High 20s, 30%. And so since then it's kind of stayed there, but over the last couple of years, it's progressively been going down. I think there's been a lot of strategic work to hire people and fill these vacancies, and we've been more laser focused on it as of late. And we've been getting a lot better with our strategy and placement of that as well, with a lot of the staffing tools that Em's put together that he's shown you guys over the last few weeks.
And you said something about revisiting temporary library or intermittent.
Yeah.
Will that address some of those three?
Yeah, Heather and I have been working on a task force, that's like kind of phase 2 of looking at intermittent positions. So the primary one was pages, and then we moved on to substitute librarians. So right now we're evaluating extra hours, which is a concept we use when we have vacancies. We allow extra hours for part-time and intermittent positions to take. So we're looking at that policy and the job description right for staff for librarian substitute. So we're the first, I think we've had 2 meetings so far. We're meeting every 2 weeks. So.
Yes. Cool. And did you have other?
That was it, just the 2.
Oh.
Abbott and then staffing. That's all I got. Any questions? Any other questions?
Tess.
Thank you. I just really want to piggyback on what Anthony was just saying with respect to the change in the staffing. We've actually been doing a deeper dive analysis to try to understand, what had occurred over the past several years with the staffing levels. And I just want to emphasize again that the significant change has really occurred in the past year. And I think it's definitely been complicated, I think, for everyone to learn how to work together in new ways and establish new workflows to make this happen more quickly, but I think it's really worth it. And that significant leap, if in the past year, there were twice as many overall actions, including hiring, transferring people, promoting people, twice as many as there had been the previous year. So that's a significant difference. One of the things I want to mention that's, I think, played a major role, apart from the work of our deputies really providing a lot of leadership and collaborating, as well as all the LSMs spending a lot of time in interviews and in meetings where these processes are being coordinated. It's just really looking at how we can kind of be more strategic, how we can do some of this work differently, how we can be more efficient, in addition to adding capacity in the library's HR team. Because one of the things that we came to understand in looking back is that there was much more limited capacity in the HR team. Immediately during the COVID period, immediately following it. And so one of the things that the staff has done is brought in more people in HR, which can support recruitment at a greater rate, which I think is really important. This is going to continue to be one of our priority activities over the next year. I think we're in a really good position, and we want to really see that vacancy rate get up to more of a standard vacancy rate. Although I will say that given that we're now in line with the rest of the county, we're definitely in a more favorable position than we were even a year ago, which I'm just really grateful to everybody. Because I know that it's those situations where you're trying to make operational decisions based on the number of staff, it's really hard. I also just want to, again, thank everybody for your patience, your generosity in getting me up to speed in all these different areas. One of the things I've been doing is just having individual meetings with all of the managers. That's been very helpful for me to understand the really full range of work that people are doing here, all of the creative thinking that is coming into our system, the really amazing capacity that we added with all of these more recent people that have joined our LSM team. It's just it's an exciting time. I'm would like to get to more branches than I did last week. I need to kind of improve that. Just because we had to do a deeper dive in some projects, but I'm continuing to try to stay on the goal of visiting all of the locations as well. And I'm definitely looking forward to the regional meetings that will involve more staff that are coming up towards the end of October.
Great. I'm sure they're looking forward to meeting you.
I think meeting the staff has been the best aspect of this experience.
Any other questions for Tess? Mariana?
No, but thank you for asking.
I think we're ready to adjourn.
I move to be adjourned.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're all done. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.